It only took us 45 minutes to figure out audio.
Fuck yeah.
Oh man. All right. Cool. All right. The audio's off. I've got my backup audio stream. The video's recording. We're live. Our faces are up on
We
Twitch.
are
There's people in
live.
chat.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
There are
Excellent.
people in chat.
Cool. All right. So here's my clap. Give me a clap, Ian.
There we
Good.
go.
Give me a clap, Phil. All right. I saw it. I didn't hear it, but that's okay. You've got a local audio, so I'll sync that up later.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wait, Phil, can you talk for a second?
Yes.
Oh, okay, no, I can hear. I just didn't hear the clap. All right, sweet. Let's
No.
continue on.
It was
All right,
sharp
great.
edge.
So since we didn't have the video on the VOD, actually introducing ourselves last time, which admittedly we sort of did only very briefly, I figured we should just start off today by saying, well, first of all, welcome to the DemiTastes Whiskey Cast.
Welcome.
The title of the stream is incorrect. Now it's fixed.
There we go.
Yay.
You have to click done. Yeah, so welcome
yeah.
to the DemiTaste Whiskey Cast on this Thursday, April 27th. This is our second time doing this, and I'd like to say we're getting better, but that was inarguably worse than the first time.
Yeah.
My name is Doug, also known as DemiTastes. Who I am a mod of the Whiskey Lodge and a whiskey enthusiast, and I like just about all things that there are in spirits. And I do a little bit of writing and interviewing and that sort of thing. Since I like to share, I decided I wanted to broaden my audience. So I suggested, why don't we make a podcast or a video podcast or something like that? So that is what this is. So that's me. Ian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi there, my name is Ian, also known as Spooky Chicken. I am not a mod of anywhere because no one in their right mind trusts me with authority. I have been working in the industry for some time, started out in the restaurant industry, moved into sommelier work back east, and I'm now working in the whiskey industry out west here. So that's sort of my whole deal. I have a particular focus on the history of drinking, especially in America. We'll get into that a little bit later here. But Phil, next is you.
Hello. My name is Phil. I'm Duckphil Platypus on Discord and Drinking Geeks on Twitter. And I also run a YouTube channel that has been quiet for almost 2 years, unfortunately. I'm working on it, I promise. Where I talk about whiskey, primarily reviewing it and making cocktails. And I am, unfortunately, a moderator at the Whiskey Lodge because somebody decided that was a good idea.
All right. So what are you all drinking today, by the way?
Oh, of course, I have my coffee here from
yeah.
I've got
local coffee shop.
well, I had. It is unfortunately empty now. Some Irish breakfast tea.
We used up all your tea in our technical difficulties time.
Yeah.
I
okay.
am drinking currently some iced American wildflower tea from I think I got that up in northern Arizona somewhere. Very, very lovely little herbal tea.
Excellent. By the way, y'all, here's my little soapbox. You should support your local coffee roasters, especially if they do good work. Yeah. If you've got a choice between, I don't know, a $23 bag of coffee at your local coffee roasters and $20 bag from somewhere else, go with local. Always support your local businesses.
Yeah. The $3 difference gets you so much more in terms of value and quality, and that's a big deal.
And we can say the same
Check
thing
to
about
see if you're
support your local distilleries because they often are overlooked, under distributed, and can be quite special.
Oh yeah.
Check to see if your local Starbucks are unionizing and support them if they are. But other than that,
Oh, I don't have
Oh boy.
timestamps in the stream chat, but yeah,
ooh,
I believe all three of us are transmitting audio now. I think
I
Oh,
believe
excellent.
so.
just let me know in chat if that's not true.
Yeah, do tell me.
Okay, cool. Um, yeah,
Yeah, local breweries too, Rendrat. Always a
yes.
great time going to local breweries. They usually have like dirt cheap prices too, unless if you're in a really big city or something.
So let's see. First up on the agenda, I believe, do we just want to get into the labels, or do we want to spend some time talking about what we drink, how we drink, that sort of thing?
Ye- Yeah,
I
let's
mean,
talk a little bit about how we've been drinking this week, what we've been kind of doing lately, I would say.
Yeah, so well, I'll start. Behind me here, I have some recent acquisitions. A lot of those are single barrel picks from the Our Bourbon program, which they're very good at what they do. So I can recommend if you were on the fence, especially if you like bourbony kinds of things, because they mostly go in
Ooh,
that wheelhouse. So you might have a Scotch or a rum or an Armagnac that feels a little bit more oaky and like caramelly in profile or vanilla-y in profile, um, compared to your maybe more typical examples of that category. So that's one thing to look out for. But that's exactly the thing. We will undoubtedly talk about barrel picks in at
at
length,
some point.
not today. But one of the great things about finding somebody you like who's good at picking barrels, um, you wanna continue. If you like their profile, chances are everything they do is gonna be aligned with
Yeah.
that profile. So you can if you like one thing, you can probably assume that you're gonna like something else from them. On that note,
Yes.
I mean, not behind me here, but my coolest acquisition this week was Lost Lantern released their single distillery series of single malts, American single malts, I believe they all are. Two from Del Bach and one from Balcones. And they are, instead of being single barrels, they are multiple barrels from the same distillery, so still a single malt. And I'm hoping that we have time still, now that we only have an hour left or 50 minutes left. I'm hoping that we have time still to really get into what that means, because
mm,
that was on the agenda today to talk about American single malt. So I am super excited to be seeing an independent bottler doing multiple barrel blends from the same distillery, and the opportunity that allows us to talk about what exactly a single malt is. Because there is
Yes.
a lot of room to play with that category, even though it sounds very
Oh yeah.
restrictive at first.
yeah.
But when I
And
No, it's a
have
Lost
very,
those
very
Lantern
fun
bottles,
is
one.
when I have those bottles,
yes.
we'll be
Lost
reviewing them and
Lantern is
talking about
also
them.
really cool. They do good stuff like across the board. And
Mm.
Adam is really cool.
Adam, yeah, no, I've had a few interactions with him on the lodge. He seems like a really, really chill person. I've had a lot of the previous Del Bach picks, and all of them were fascinating, honestly. There's one that tastes incredibly distinctly like bubble gum, interestingly enough.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no, sometimes the mesquited barrels over there will will have a distinct bubblegum scent going on too. Very interesting.
Ah.
On that
So,
note,
Yes.
um, I'm just gonna go ahead and uh, about the lodge, where you can find a link to the lodge is now officially in the description
ooh.
of this video here that we have up on YouTube now. That's the VOD from last week. We didn't have enough backup stuff to do any real editing here, so this is just a raw audio like we streamed it. Um, oh, by the way, I think you should be getting 1080p on the stream now. Last week we were
Ooh.
downscaling accidentally to 720. I figured out how to fix that. I don't know how you can check, but the quality should be better. I think
Excellent.
is pretty much what that comes down to, and the recording should be better as well. So There's our video up there from last week, and down here you can find the link to join the Whiskey Lodge, um, and you can also find links to our other YouTube channels and our other socials, and you can feel free to interact with us in any way that makes you feel happy there. And I have no idea why everything on this brand new YouTube channel seems to be Mr. Beast on the right side. That recommendation's there.
That is an odd situation, isn't it?
Well, it's because he's so huge that YouTube knows that he's a good money draw.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. Well, anyway,
I
come hang out with us in the lodge if you're not already
yes.
there, because we are generally a lot more eloquent when we have
Right.
time to think about and phrase our responses, and we're going to try
Oh,
our
some of
best.
us are.
Well, you certainly have
Yeah.
done your research on a couple of recent posts there, which is very much appreciated.
Oh, that is very fair, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's what I've gotten recently, and essentially that's what I've been drinking. Although I only opened one of those so far. The one that I opened was that 19-year rum, which is
Ooh.
not whiskey. And funny enough, having been reviewing whiskey for 3 years now, I find myself drinking things that aren't whiskey a lot more often. For
Mm.
example, I was doing some athletics in the first quarter of this year, and I found myself not wanting to compromise my athletic training by putting high proof spirits in my body. And I also had run a sherry tasting. And sherry is fortified wine, so like a little stronger than wine, but basically wine around that 10 to 13 proof, 10 to 13% alcohol range. Um,
And
and
extremely popular for finishing whiskey and other
Mm.
spirits.
yes, extremely relevant
Oh,
to
incredibly
whiskey.
so.
And having spent quite a lot of time with the various styles of sherry over the last 3 months, I mean, the first 3 months of this year, I have all the greater appreciation for where those flavors in whiskey come from. I will say I prefer sherried whiskey to sherry itself, but sherry has grown on me.
That's always good.
Yeah,
Probably do a deeper dive into sherry at some point during the course of this podcast,
for
sort of talk
sure.
about where a lot of these barrels
Mhm.
come from, the history thereof. Because sherry, especially process and history of that is incredibly notable, but also incredibly complex. So that's a very, very interesting situation right there.
Yep. There are articles that would probably do a better job than us in the short term at explaining all of that to you. I
Hmm.
will go find one of those and link it in the YouTube description because really you ought to read from people who have spent a lot more time thinking about sherry than we have. It is very interesting. We'll get into it, do kind of a summary, but for now, I think it's sherrynotes.com.
Ooh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Is a great place to learn about sherry, especially in its relationship to whiskey.
Right. So moving on just a little bit here before we go into some of the meat of the episode, I have been drinking a few different things this week, most notably not whiskey. But starting off right there, my first big new thing trying out this week was a bottle of Fernet Valais. This is probably backwards on the actual stream right here. No, it's
Nope,
forwards. Never
looks
mind.
right.
This is Fernet Valais. This is a Mexican Fernet. It is a rather interesting one. No mint on it like the normal Fernet Branca that you would find. But if you do see a bottle of this hanging around, I do highly suggest it. It's very bitter, a little bit more fruity and floral than a lot of European Fernets. But this one's a fairly interesting one right here. Work easily as bitters or other digestives in your cocktails and things like that.
Yep.
But
And by the way, this is a close-up of the rum that I'm drinking here.
ooh,
The Lost
beautiful.
Cask, um, Rolling Fork Spirits, which sounds familiar.
Ooh, okay.
I think they do whiskey stuff as well. This is
I've
a
heard of them before, yeah.
Guyana, I think is how you pronounce it, Guyana. Um, Distilled in Guyana, or Guyana? I don't know.
I think it's
I don't know. I don't
Guyana.
know off
Yeah.
the top of my head,
I'm
honestly.
not
Guyana, I
sure
think.
Never
though.
ever try to learn to pronounce things on stream. Let's just whoever
Ooh,
says it
Yeah,
that's a good
first,
yeah.
point. That's a fair point. Whoever says it first, that's how we'll do it.
that's how we'll do it. Yeah. Now that's going to be a bit where we just like one up each other with weird pronunciations that are clearly wrong.
Oh
Oh,
no.
just wait till we get to some Scotch distilleries.
Yeah,
I'm
Ooh,
so
really good
yeah.
at pronouncing them, but I will not on this podcast.
So
yeah.
Renbret is asking what style of rum that is. That's a very, very light rum, honestly. It's quite interesting for
Yeah,
19
so
years old.
this is 19 years old and it is pretty light. It's not quite, it's a little more than pale straw, I would say. Like a real light
Hmm.
gold in the glass. Um, so this is distilled in Guyana. I mean, so I'll tell you, I don't know what I can say about style, because I have not done my research on this bottle yet. It just looked pretty, to be quite honest.
Sure.
And that's a perfectly reasonable reason to buy something that you're interested in, right? I wanted to try an older rum from somewhere other than Jamaica. And this fit the bill and came along at just the right time when I was looking to buy one, so I scooped it up. Um, its flavor profile is pretty fruity, mostly apricots, I think is what hit me
Mm.
first. And uh, sort of on the finish or the turn to the finish, it has just a hint of kind of an industrial funk, like machine oil.
Ooh,
So
I
I
actually
would
like that
not
note.
be surprised to learn that this is a Dundred rum. And we'll get into what that is at a later time too. That's not on the agenda today. And it's probably not even worth summarizing because there's really no short way to do that that doesn't sound bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Phil,
should.
what have you been drinking this week?
This week I've been drinking mainly peated American single malt because I got a whole bunch down
Yeah.
last week, and because most of my peated single malts, like the uh, Balcones that I have, sort of live on the top of my shelf where I can't reach them easily. So while I had them down, I've been drinking those. Um, so mainly McCarthy's. Although I have had a little bit more of the Cashel, and I have to say I really, really like that stuff. I think they deserve way more credit for what they're doing. They are, let me see if I can figure out where in Virginia they are. They're in Hampton, Virginia,
Mm.
and they make
Very
good stuff.
fun.
Um, and I've actually poured myself a little bit of the Balcones peated Texas single malt, finished in Sauternes casks.
Ooh, very fun.
Since I haven't
Uh,
chosen anything to drink yet, and I have that, I'm going to join you.
Oh, okay.
See,
I should probably break out something peated of mine, shouldn't
I'm kind of kicking my palate in the teeth.
I have a little glass of because we talk about single malts in here sometimes. I have a little glass of the which one is this? The Kilkerran Campbelltown heavily peated, which is
Ooh,
something. I'll send you two samples, or we'll get samples to you two sometime or other, definitely. But trade them around somehow. But
So,
hot damn, it's such a gorgeous.
yeah, Duck, did yours come in this wooden box with the window?
yes,
Nice.
yes. He, I like it. Fantastic packaging. I There's something about a whiskey that comes in a presentation box with a handle on the top that just it makes it taste a little bit better, right?
Honestly,
Yeah, it
I
does.
had no idea. I think I got it first, and you knew before you bought yours, I think, that it came in this box. I had
Yeah.
no idea it would come in this box. I just saw Texas single malt, peated, finished in Sauterne casks, and I couldn't resist. And because I was doing an online order with Pauconis, of course, I threw in two
Oh
extra
yeah.
bottles. One of which was Brimstone, and that's a
Oh,
fun
so did
one.
I.
That's smoking done a very different way than we
I'll have to
normally do.
find some of that for myself at some point.
We'll have to talk about some of the different styles
Yeah.
of smoking and things like that and the innovations of it sometime. But we'll be getting into a lot more on peat future episode, especially. I'd say. I've been talking about that here and there.
Oh yeah.
So with
Speaking
that,
of
ooh, go on.
speaking of talking about things coming up, I might as well just run through the news real quick.
Ooh, yeah.
First up, I've only got a couple of news things. I think two. Yeah, two. The first is Inchterny has released their first uh, whiskey. It's a single grain. which in
Ooh,
Scottish parlance just means that it is a grain whiskey released from a single distillery, um, and it can be
Can I zoom in on
uh,
that? I'm gonna zoom
any
in,
combination
so
of grains distilled in a. Okay.
go ahead.
Um, any combination of grains distilled in a pot still or in a column still. Um, this one in particular is uh, 47% malted barley and 53% rye, which is cool. You don't see a whole lot of rye whiskey coming out of Scotland. And this is definitely one that I'd be interested in trying if I ever see it in the States. Um, it is bottled at 46.3% alcohol by volume. So
my
that
God.
is yeah, 92.6 proof. It was distilled in 2017 and will be sold with a recommended retail price of £110.
Hey, that's not bad. What's the
So
age on that
it's
again?
a bit pricey. Hmm?
What's the age on that? No age?
Distilled in distilled in 2017.
Oh, okay.
So there
Quite
isn't
young.
an age on it, but yeah, it is very young. I mean, Inchjourney is a fairly young distillery, I believe. Um,
That's very young for
and
a
I
single
really
grain.
like their bottle.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
very interested in it. That particular price is rather £110. You said is rather interesting to me. I'd
yeah.
love to try it if I ever saw it, but I'm going to be honest, I have not been entirely impressed by a lot of, not a lot. I barely had any because I don't see any. But of the ryes that have come out of Scotland, the most notable recent release I think was the Johnny Walker High
Mm-hmm.
Rye,
Mm-hmm.
which I found perfectly acceptable for the price, but not anything particularly stand out compared to American rye, in my own opinion. But I'd be very
Yeah.
interested to see how this guy does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's an interesting point.
So the Johnny Walker rye,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, as Rendrat said, it's Johnny Walker. It
Yeah.
definitely fits their flavor profile with a little bit of extra spice. It's not really, it doesn't really jump out at you. But the next news item is even more, in my personal opinion, boring. But it is news. So, next slide, please.
Yeah. By the way, chat, how's
Of
the
course, it takes up
balance
space on your
between
shelf.
uh, myself and the other gentleman on the call?
Indeed, we'd love to hear about that.
What I'm seeing is, I
Chat.
think,
What?
Okay, in my defense,
sound equal. Great. Thank
You
you.
all
in
sound
my
equal.
defense,
Sweet. All
Holden.
right. I really want to hear about this Jack Daniels thing, Phil.
Okay.
Um, so
McLaren Formula One
this
team.
is yes.
All right.
Uh, so it is. Get this. This is like mind-blowing stuff. This is literally just the regular old number seven.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, I
Disappointed.
saw. Ooh, McLaren. Yeah, I saw McLaren Jack Daniels, and it's like, well, they've been doing some different stuff lately. Maybe it's one of their new releases, or something special about it, something different, because they have been breaking out about breaking out from what they usually do, and like taking a step beyond the classic old number seven. This it's probably going to be really expensive. There wasn't a recommended retail price listed. And it will be available in select race cities and select stores across the U.S. So basically, probably following around the F1 circuit. And yeah,
The
it's a gimmick.
the tie-in with F1 is particularly fascinating because I was not aware that
Yeah.
I don't believe that a lot of Americans are particularly into.
You might
So
be
I know that
surprised. I know a lot of
I
people who
might
are
be.
actually.
I mean, I think it's fairly
I
exciting to watch.
most of the people that I know who are into racing are as into F1 as they are NASCAR or a couple of the other um, stuff. I'm
Hmm.
trying to think of what the little cars are,
NASCAR?
and I can't think of it.
The
Uh,
little
they're,
one.
yeah, they're dirt
Matchbox
track.
cars?
Nah, no, like they're dirt track.
IndyCar?
Um, like sprint. That's it.
Sprint
Thank you,
cars,
Skip.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I actually know someone who. I know someone who's on a racing team, and they do some really interesting, wild things. And they don't drink at all. So,
Hmm, sure. Probably the best if you're a professional driver of some sort.
yeah. I think he's a mechanic, but yeah. Um, and that concludes the news. With
Well, there you
all of
go.
the exciting stuff that I found.
We
Yeah,
have, oh
I
yeah, and
got
then
through
we're going
news
to get
quick.
back into the labels
And
from last
now,
week. Okay. I just want to,
mhm,
I want to add a couple of comments on this one.
yeah, I've just got.
So
Oh, of course.
like we said earlier, there's nothing wrong with buying a bottle because you like how it looks, right? As much as we,
Hmm.
the enthusiasts, really want to talk about what does it taste like? Is it good? What does it cost? Is it a good value? Drink it neat, and then we'll say, that's how we prefer it usually. And then we'll say, try it in a cocktail, do it on the rocks, add some water, like however you want to drink it, right? And we personally, most of the time, I think, at least me and Phil, most of the time are drinking our spirits neat and slowly. Um, I know that Ian really likes doing his cocktail experiments, which I super respect, and I've gotten self-conscious about the fact that I review some things poorly, which I think I really ought to have tried in a cocktail first, because sometimes the purpose of a spirit, it was, designed and blended and released for cocktails, and sometimes you got to lean into that. Now, for branding,
Glenmorangie X comes to mind.
yeah, many
Oh yeah.
things, many things. So, Jack Daniel's Old Number Seven with a fancy box and no other difference is
Hey, that
going
is a
to
sick
appeal,
box, though. I love
right?
that.
Is going to appeal to
Oh
certain
yeah.
people who like a certain thing, want to have that on their shelf. There's another great example in a category that I'm not a big fan of Tennessee whiskey personally, but in a category that I am a big fan of, American single malt, Westland released their flagship single malt, and then something like a year later, they released simultaneously. They have both labels now. The Kraken hockey team commemorative label, which is exactly the same whiskey. And a lot of people at first were saying, why would you release a new label if it's exactly the same whiskey? But if you actually ask them about it, no, it's the same whiskey, and they put the label on it because
Mhm.
they partnered with the team, and it's a commemorative thing, and they wanted it to be affordable, so they put their affordable whiskey in it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of all there is to that.
Yeah.
Again, nothing wrong
Yeah,
with it,
there
I
right?
is.
mean, it
But
makes
people who
sense.
are fans of the
Yeah.
Kraken like to have that bottle on their shelf. People who are fans of McLaren probably will like to have this bottle on their shelves. Um, I think the back on Jack Daniels, the Sinatra Select, people who like
Oh
Frank
yeah.
Sinatra want to have that bottle. Technically, though, that is actually a different whiskey than the old Number Seven. I don't know how different
Yes.
it is. I haven't tried it personally, but
Seen a
I
bottle,
have
never
not
had it before.
either. The ABC store nearest me had two bottles of Sinatra Select at one point, and I was really tempted to be like, I'll save up for like 6 months and buy one just to see. But also, there are so many cool craft things that I could get for the same money. And I'm not talking about like so many individual things that I could buy, you know, one at a time, but like literally adding up small craft things from interesting local distilleries that it just wasn't worth it for me, which is where the like enthusiast price point sort of connection happens, that like stuff that would be a good sell for other people isn't for me because of my position as a an enthusiast and how I see spirits. Hello? Did you lose
Hello
me?
there. I don't know what
No,
just
no, no,
happened.
no.
It's super weird.
Did I lose you?
No, you're good. I was just reading chat.
Okay, sweet.
I'm gonna have to work on the right balance
Oh, okay.
of reading chat and not getting too distracted by chat. It's one of the
Mhm.
challenges with Twitch, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Is that,
Yeah.
we are live, and by virtue of being live, we have our audience to react to and play off of. There's an art to that. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move back into we were doing a upcoming labels review, um, and we did
Yeah.
not manage to get through all of the labels that we selected to talk about. So here we are. Phil, I believe you had comments about the last several labels that we have here.
Yeah, I want to hear your
Yes.
comments about the
Okay.
Wapiti label.
I think that this is a pretty good label.
Hmm.
Um, I have like three major, like, this is cool, but things. The biggest is that the American single malt notation underneath Pennsylvania, both the Pennsylvania and the American single malt are
I'm
that
sorry,
Barrel 21 logo.
I switched to make it bigger, and I didn't have the audio stream on that scene. So your comments just there
Whoops.
got lost. My bad. Could you
Oh,
repeat?
it's okay.
Just take it from the top. Sorry.
So I think that this is an okay label, but I've got like two, oh, that's cool, but that like pop out to me. The first is
Yeah.
that the word Pennsylvania is a little bit hard to read just
Oh,
because of the
very
font
hard to.
choice. And American single malt whiskey kind of a little bit gets lost in that like decorative scroll work.
Hmm.
And it is my personal opinion that they could lose that little decorative scroll work, feathery stuff, and it would improve the label actually. The
Yeah.
other one, and the one that jumps out to me perhaps the most, is the Barrel 21 logo.
Yeah.
Um, because of the positioning of the number 21, it could lead to confusion.
Hmm.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think it's a great label. I really like it.
Yeah, let me just
And
clarify.
I'd love to try it.
Let me just clarify for people who are not as well versed in whiskey and spirits. Um, Things like this sometimes produce some controversy because you can write pretty much whatever you want on a label unless it is a legally protected phrase. However, we are used to seeing the big number on the label and interpreting that as an age in years. So you'll have something like a rum that says like 15 star whatever, and that's actually like a blend of 7-year old and 15-year old. Um, yes, let me switch so that's a little bit bigger there, Phil.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I actually do want to know what you have to say about that one.
yeah, so this one's the Lagavulin Offerman Edition 11-year old, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so there is
I'm just
we can't quite
picking
see
up
it.
things that have.
Sure, yeah, Tullamore Dew 12-year-old.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
yeah, just
12-year-old. Yeah.
things with age statements. I was
Yep.
just grabbing.
You get into some very sort of dicey territory with age statements in rum, especially because
Oh yeah,
certain rums
what's
have
that one
moved
Oh
there?
yeah.
into.
Sorry, bring that back.
Oh, yeah,
Which
bring that
label is
back on
that?
screen.
Oh,
And remember, some people are
I
going to be
was
listening
saying I'm
only, so
grabbing
read them
things with
out.
age.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I grabbed the Opperman 11-year-old, which has 11 bigger than any of the other font on the box. Same with the Tullamore Dew 12, which also has silver lettering for the age statement. And then for a laughs, I grabbed the Catoctin Creek 1757 brandy, which that is not an age statement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's
and
clear
that's
it's not an age
pretty
statement.
But
clear because it's a year,
Yeah.
or it looks it's
right,
a 4-digit number.
yeah,
I don't think
We'll
anybody's
talk about.
drinking
yeah,
thousand. No, nobody's drinking 1,000-year-old whiskey because whiskey as we know it today didn't
No.
exist 1,000 years ago.
So
true.
rum especially is going to be a little bit of a weird scenario with this because you get into some very interesting things. We'll talk about this probably more during the long conversation about sherry. Some rums have moved into calling their rums a Solera aging process. Don't quote me on this. I believe that Ron Zacapa is a pretty big one for that. where they'll put a pretty big
Yes.
sort of statement of the oldest rum in that blend on the bottle, because that is a thing they can do. But that rum is not, for instance, 21 years old on average. It is a blend of some rather young rums, some rather old rums, which is not in itself a bad thing. It makes some really good tasting liquor. But it
Right.
is somewhat. I am not personally a
Misleading.
huge fan of it because it just is a little bit misleading.
So one of the gold standards in whiskey blending is that the age statement on the label, the statement that the whiskey bears is the age of the youngest whiskey in the blend, and that is not true of rum.
Mm.
And it's not something that is necessarily
Although
a
I
bad thing for
think,
other
if I'm not
spirits,
mistaken,
apart from it misleading.
U.S. spirits laws, I think, if you're bottling it in the U.S. as a U.S. product, like for instance, this rum that I picked up was bottled in Indiana.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so if you're
Right.
bottling in the US, your labels have to conform with US law. And in US law, it is true for all aged spirits, it has to be the age of the youngest component. The thing to
Mm.
realize is a lot of rum comes from other places, right? Rum is kind of a worldwide spirit, lots in the
Yes.
Caribbean, and South
Lots
America.
in India, Southeast Asia, quite a lot of well.
Yep. Pretty much any
Oh
place
yeah.
that grows sugarcane is going to have their own kind of rum.
Latin
And
America.
yep. And whenever you're
Latin
buying a
America, a lot of
foreign
it.
whenever you're buying a foreign product, you have to be aware of the laws that apply with respect to that product. Particularly if that product is bought abroad or was imported, as opposed to released in the U.S. market, because there are different ways to get the same spirit, and the label may differ, the product may differ. So, unfortunately, being a savvy consumer of spirits requires you a little bit to know some of the laws involved in the countries where you're getting your spirits from. And this is one of them where
Right.
you have to read the label really carefully. There's nothing wrong with having a big number on your label.
Yeah,
Um,
that Barrel 21, good logo in and of itself. Great logo for a restaurant, I
Right.
think, which it clearly is.
hmm. Yep, there you go.
I am
Distillery and
I
dining.
am interested in a very particular part of this label right here. Over on that left side, it says made from Pennsylvania grains. And underneath that, it says, I believe that is 87% Speyside Heritage malt. Just want to be clear about that. Does
Right.
that mean that they got the malt seeds or the barley seeds from Speyside? Or have they directly imported a majority of this whiskey in malt from Scotland?
So, Speyside malt is I want to say a subspecies of
Mm.
barley or a method of
Okay.
malting. It's sort of like how there are like types of rye grain that are named after places where they grow best or were originally hybridized. Um, but I don't know for sure about Speyside malt. I would guess so, just based on the fact that they do put made from Pennsylvania grains on there, and if it
Yeah.
wasn't made from Pennsylvania grains, that is something that they could get into trouble with.
Mm.
Um,
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, got it. Because I was just that was a very confusing bit of the label. I
yeah,
wish they would make that a little bit more clear, but that's a probably more of a nerd thing than anything else.
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess in this case, so my reading of this would be,
Hmm.
and not that I like, this is one of those thinkers, right? If you want to really know what's in your bottle, you kind of have to
mhm,
scrutinize what is on the label. Um, For example, I had a bottle of Texas whiskey where the age statement was sort of very carefully buried in the text in the paragraph on the back. Um,
Interesting. What was the age statement out of curiosity?
um, Maybe we could get into that one at some point.
Ooh, I'd love to.
I believe it was the Balcones, not sorry, not Balcones, the Garrison Brothers Balmoria,
Okay.
is a twice barreled Texas bourbon.
yes,
And
Hmm.
the trick with their age is that they'll say this has spent a total of 5 years in the barrel. But in fact, after the first 2 or 3 years, they have moved it to another barrel. And then the question becomes, do you get to count the time in the next barrel? And the answer is a little fuzzy. Some people just say outright no. Some
Yeah.
people say if you got it in the new
Yeah.
barrel in the same day, it's okay and it counts. Because there are things like you'll have whiskey that's aged 70 years, and what you filled a barrel with is going to evaporate to the point the barrel would fall apart, really, if you left it in there that long. But at least in Scotland,
Yeah.
I think they have a rule where if you get it re-barreled in the same day to a similar barrel, then the age continues counting. But that is not necessarily true of US spirits labeling. In the US, I believe technically the age of that with that Texas whiskey that's twice barreled would be the greater of the two lengths of time it was in the separate barrels.
Oh,
Interesting. I
interesting.
thought it would be the
That's
initial aging.
Uh,
yeah. No, I mean,
I think it starts
I
over when you put it in a new barrel, and if the new barrel exceeds the first
Okay.
barrel, then it could be longer. So you could say, um, so for a bourbon, has to start in a brand new barrel, but you could put it into
Right.
a used barrel and then call it bourbon finished in refilled oak or something like that. And
Right.
if the length of time in the second barrel was longer, then you could say, here's my 10-year-old bourbon that is actually, aged for a total of 12 years or something like that, but isn't
Hmm.
terribly oaky because most of that time was in a refilled barrel. Things get weird, right? You got to learn how to read the labels and know
Yeah.
what the laws say and what they can and can't do. And I mean, you don't really need to. Let's say you don't, if you're getting into drinking whiskey, you don't need to know these things. But as a matter of being an
Hmm.
informed consumer, it's a good idea to know some of it.
yeah. There is. We'll get into this,
So
especially as we go on in this podcast, things like that. The entry knowledge for spirits is less daunting than I think a lot of both publications
Yep.
and sort of media that you consume about it would make it seem.
I know
There's
basically nothing
a
about
yeah.
rum, and I bought this.
there's a
Yeah.
wide variety of whiskeys that you can just buy and drink, and they'll be pretty good. This is a Trader Joe's bottle of Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey that I got for about $13. It's not a bad whiskey.
I've had it
Um,
before. I disagree with that assessment.
I'm totally fine with that. Um, whether or not it is, we can actually talk about this sometime because whether or not it is changed
We are
is a
helping someone become
really
a more
interesting
informed
question.
seller. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, you're
We're
totally.
helping someone in chat, Rendrat, become a
Oh,
more informed seller. We have varying degrees of industry people involved here.
Right. Because
the more informed a seller you are, the more
yeah,
money you
he
can make.
is.
It's quite useful. Phil?
He works in a liquor store,
Yeah.
and so like knowledge of the what he sells is sort of a a key component of success in his field. And it's wild how little actual like learning they get. Um,
Your local liquor store people, your local people who work at Total Wine or your ABC stores, if it's state run, they don't get shit for training. Let's be
mhm,
real. They have to do that all on their
no,
own time. Treat your retail workers well, guys.
If you walk into a liquor store, there are a lot of different kinds of people that you might meet. So, hey, by the way, I just wanna put an asterisk on this. In planning for these episodes, we went ahead and said we're gonna put up these slides and we're gonna
Yeah, we are.
riff on whatever comes out of that because we have a lot to say,
oh yeah,
and really preparing a script isn't how we want to do this. We just want to share what we know or what we think. So we're gonna go off on tangents all the time. Hopefully that's
Yeah.
good with you. If it's not and you'd like more structured content, let us know. But this is how we're doing it for now.
Do tell us because we
yeah.
can do more structured content. We just decide.
Yep, just decided not to.
So
Yeah, okay. So when you walk into a liquor store, you're going to meet a couple of different kinds of people. You're going to meet, like, let's say you're walking into a liquor and wine store, and you're going to walk in there, and there's going to be some people who know about wine. You probably won't find them right away. I was looking for a bottle of wine that was pretty niche. I knew that they had it because their website inventory had it. I'd called about it previously. Um, my wife happened to be in the neighborhood, so I sent her in there and she asked about the bottle. And this is one of those things where if you don't get the exact details right, they're going to think they don't have it unless you grab the
They
wine
look it
expert.
up in one of those systems. Those systems might be from the 90s
Yep.
or something like that.
Oh
You have
yeah,
Yep,
no
they're
idea what
or
they're
typing they're
looking
earlier.
shit
typing in
up
the
on.
matrix, the green on black, and like they're hitting
Yeah.
tab and they don't have a mouse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those things still exist. Um,
Oh yeah.
or I think the more recent one I saw was like a Windows 95
I
looking.
worked in a shop once whose operating software was in fact Windows 97. Back in 2018, I want to say.
Windows 98 maybe.
Windows 98. No, you're
Well,
right.
Okay, I was like, I don't think Windows 97 was a thing. Um,
I
It probably was not. However it was almost as old as
I'm
I
fair
am.
enough. Yeah, so sometimes you'll go into the liquor store and you'll get the person who just wanted a job, right? Just your
Yeah.
typical retail worker. They stock the shelves. They might remember something that's
mhm.
there. They're going to deal with the vast majority of the customers are just there because they're looking for a party whiskey or a party vodka or a case of beer or the typical kinds of wine where it's like, you want a red, a white, or a rosé. I'll point you in the right direction. You want a sparkling? I got you, right? Like, and then there's
They
like,
know what Cabernet Sauvignon is. They might not necessarily know about Sangiovese or something,
sure.
and that's totally fine.
Yeah, so there's definitely levels to the knowledge. And if you're looking for a very specific kind of wine, you might need to ask them and don't feel bad because they know what their expertise are. Sommeliers get certified very rigorously. And if they happen to have a sommelier or another kind of wine expert, it is totally okay to ask, like, hey, I know a thing or two about wine, or I'm looking for something really specific. Can you point me to your wine expert? And similarly, you might walk into a liquor store wanting to get an extra special whiskey, um, and you might want to ask for the bourbon expert or the Scotch expert. And these are generally different things because those are both huge, broad categories. Now, if you don't ask for a specific expert or you can't tell, the store employee that's trying to sell stuff to you might just be trying to upsell you on the brands that they have a contract to sell more of, right? If they look at you and say you're not an informed
Mhm.
consumer, you're probably going to be happy with whatever $100 bottle of bourbon I give you for Father's Day. You're not going to ask too many questions, right? Like they're incentivized to sell you a certain set of things. Um,
Yeah.
so that's one reason to be really informed going into a liquor store to know to like be able to hold your own in a conversation about whatever it is that you're looking for, so they can tell that you're serious about looking for something special and they might actually give you the expert as opposed to the retail upseller. Um, so yeah, they're definitely all levels of, hey, I just work here, or I care a little bit about wine or beer, or I care a little bit about spirits, or like I'm really truly an expert. And there's basically no requirement to certify to work at a liquor store, for example. You might be
Nope.
lucky to have someone with a certification or somebody with a lot of knowledge, but just on average, um, you could walk into a store and pull the Ron Swanson at Home Depot thing and go like, I know more than you, right? And just have that feeling, right? That's happened to me
And
more than once. But just as many times, I've walked into a liquor store and I have asked very pointed questions of, I'm looking for a scotch with this profile. I like X, Y, and Z. And the person will be like, that sounds like you're gonna like this thing over here. And no joke, they gave me one of my favorite whiskeys of my life.
Oh, nice. Rendrat has made a very notable point of that Rendrat has a coworker that does not drink. This has been a growing
that
movement
doesn't
both in the
surprise me.
bartending industry and the liquor industry. There are some people out there who legitimately either they just wanted a place to work, this was a good place near their house or what have you, or they just legitimately care about the industry and the craft, but they do not themselves drink. And this is something really important to keep in mind. I think back, even right before 2020, there was a really big movement for like dry Januaries and bartenders who don't drink. And it's very important
Yeah.
to both have respect for these
Well,
people that have chosen to do this industry but chosen not to drink.
yes.
Phil?
So one of the things um that is sort of a growing trend, that is a reaction to a lot of the Very common, especially in people our age, that there's an assumption that everybody drinks, at least a little bit. Everybody drinks. When you have a party, you have to have drinks, and you don't have to think about the people who don't drink. And there's been a growing trend of people going, oh, hey, we do need to have non-alcoholic options. And that's a really good thing. And
Yeah.
it's something that a lot of like cocktail channels on YouTube and whatnot sort of, I don't want to say don't take seriously, but have a tendency to ignore. And so
They have a
people
tendency
who
to, I would
maybe
say,
are into,
suggest what are essentially Mormon sodas, incredibly sugary drinks.
yeah, yes, instead of perhaps creating something that is fun and interesting and as much of a spectacle to create or concoct and put together in front of your consumer um, or guest, th- then the guy next to them who's drinking, who's getting like a cool, like, reverse dry shake, you know sour, that's a cool looking drink. And I didn't know that via ABC was carrying Seedlip.
Seedlip is a
I
great one.
will have to I'll have to put some of their stuff side by side with their alcoholic counterpart, because I know for a fact that there are some that are really not good in that respect. Um,
I
but
think it was I'm a big fan of Rituals gin, but I find Rituals
huh,
non-alcoholic rum to be one of the worst things I've ever put in my.
oof.
Yeah,
It's a
I've heard
rather
a lot of
interesting
bad
one.
things.
sometimes these products beg the question of why must they exist, right?
Mm.
Is the
Yeah,
best
like
thing you could
that.
be drinking really something that tastes vaguely similar to the product in question but is not alcoholic? Is that really your
Yeah,
best choice? Or
One of
and
the, regardless of the situation, one of the best things to be drinking always some form of tea.
Mhm.
Tea is really good, and you can make some great non-alcoholic drinks out of it. We'll
Yeah.
probably talk a lot more. We'll probably have a particular segment set aside in the future for one of our episodes about non-alcoholic drinks, non-alcoholic whiskey,
I mean, we
alternatives,
do
and
have
how we
a
think
dry
about
week
them.
coming up this quarter.
Yep.
We do have a dry week coming up.
I believe our next dry week is should be middle of July. So like the week after the 4th of July, I think is when we'll end up doing it. And that would be a great
Oh, okay.
time to wax at length about non-alcoholic beverages and alternatives. My personal preference is I'll go really into coffee, espresso, uh,
Mm.
cold brew. I'll do more
Yeah.
tea. I have
I'll
a
do so much.
recipe for a non-alcoholic hot
I
toddy that I really like. That I just have that of an
Ooh,
evening.
I need you to share that with me.
I will for sure. It's real simple. Basically, take any recipe for a hot toddy and just take out the bourbon because it's kind of redundant. You can replace it with maple syrup or honey.
Oh, that's excellent. I love that.
Yep, and it just works great. If you want a hot drink, to be honest, when I want a hot toddy, the alcohol takes away from it for me. I actually
Yeah,
just want to
that's
have
probably
like
fair.
a nice, easy, warm, comforting beverage. Does not need to have a drop of alcohol in it to be enjoyable.
The thing about it is like I do drink alcohol when I feel like alcohol is aggressive. It is not necessarily a always a pleasant thing to drink. It burns you. It really is God's reminder that he exists and does hate you just a little bit. Um but
Why did he make us
I
like these delicious things that hurt
why
us?
why did he make us desire
yeah,
this? Um, when alcohol is undeniably a poison. It is not something that is good for you, and it is something that is something we feel very seriously about here.
absolutely.
Yeah, but it is also something that we find value in, both the art, the craft, the construction of it, sort of everything about it that makes it what it is important, is relevant to both human history, being of those people. But I mean, so too are various other forms of drink, of tea, of coffee, of these wonderful things like that, which is it is a bit. We always do start out this. We always probably always are going to start out the stream drinking things that are not alcoholic, be they tea, be they coffee. be they sparkling
Mhm.
water or something like that, because these things are all incredibly important to both human history and to our own drinking practices and things like that. But we'll probably get on that a little bit more. I'm sorry, I'm waxing poetic all of a sudden.
That's
Yeah.
fine. And also, if you can't tell, we accidentally did not so much prep for this episode, so we're kind of just rolling with it.
We
Yeah.
did some prep, and then we had some technical difficulties, as it
Yep.
were.
Yep. And then instead of getting our
So
getting our
that's
slides together at the last minute, we were struggling with audio. So here, we're doing what we
yeah.
can. All right, let me read a quick comment from the comments.
Go
So
for it.
Redrat says gin seem like they should be easy to do non-alcoholic. I completely agree.
I
I don't
agree,
think I've ever seen a non-alcoholic
100%.
gin though. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
it's just an herbal tincture of some sort that is extracted with water instead of alcohol. You certainly
Seedlip
would
is
think.
a particular one. You get a lot of really cool herbal drinks of sort these days. Seedlip I would definitely describe as a non-alcoholic gin of sorts. It is
Yeah.
less so juniper, more so more herbal stuff, but 100% agree that they're easier to do. Yeah.
I think I would really enjoy, that it's a martini-ish drink. It's a martini glass drink that's Earl Grey tea and gin, among other things. What is that? What's the name of that?
I
It's
do
not a
not for the
London
life of me
fog,
Oh,
remember.
because a London
That's the
oh,
fog
coffee
is the
I'm
one.
coffee.
familiar with
Yeah.
it, but I can't think of what it is.
I
London
can't for the life of me remember. It's beautiful though.
London fog is what is it? It's a latte with a tea bag in it, right?
I believe so, yeah. A latte with Earl Grey tea in it.
Yeah.
Sounds like
I'm not gonna
I don't
read
know
that.
what you said, Ranger. I don't think I'm going to read that on stream, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely got to read it in your head before you verbalize it. That's a good muscle to.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, let's I think move on
So
at this
just
point.
just
Yeah,
to
yeah. So probably
because
next
it
slide
is
here.
something that I've been.
You okay with I
Yes,
go
next
on to the
slide.
next slide? Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Because we talked briefly about bad labels.
Yeah,
These are a pair of bad labels to different degrees. So
sure. Okay. We have
the
opinions
one
on that
from
differ,
Trillium
so I'm
is
interested.
cool. So
Could be a
Trillium
medicine bottle.
is a fairly well-respected brewing company. Yeah, it does kind of make you think of a medicine bottle. But the other thing is, it says bottled by Trillium Brewing Company, which is good. It tells you who bottled it. It does not tell you who distilled it or where it was
Yeah.
distilled. Um, the labeling up top, or not all the way up at the top, but at the top of the brown section says 40% alcohol by volume, 80 proof, 25.4 per ounce, 750 milliliters. I've never seen a spirits bottle labeled in ounces, which is kind of cool, but I know that it's common for
That is
beer.
a new one on.
It's sort of the standard for beer, I guess.
I will say, and this is maybe a flex or a humble brag. I have had. Oh, did we lose? Did we lose Ian?
Did we lose me?
Nope, nope, nope. We have lost Ian's camera at least.
Oh, I did a little weird thing.
Okay.
Hopefully that didn't screw everything up.
No, no, you're
Uh,
fine. You're back. It's all still
all right,
sorted.
good.
Yeah.
Entirely my. Sorry about that. Logged into Discord on the other monitor that I have going here. Very confusing. In any case, move on.
So I have seen I've seen American whiskey bottles labeled as a pint. Um, this was like sort of pre-prohibition, before anybody had milliliters as the standard for everything, and sort of like mid-century stuff. Before 750 milliliters was the standard,
Mm.
they used to sell whiskey in pints, which of course would have been 16 fluid ounces, or whatever
Sure.
whatever close measurement to the standard was at that point in time.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So,
That's pretty interesting.
So the
whiskey
other
is older than America's adaptation of the metric system.
oh yeah.
So for the Trillium Brewing Company, I have very specific views on this because I think this is that sort of minimalist label that you get out of a lot of tech companies like that more often these days. I am not a huge
Yeah.
fan of it. Love the flower design in the top left, but
Yeah.
it is a particular style of this that exists. I'm a very big fan of the Kinsey label, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on why that is a particularly bad label.
Before we move on, I want to
Yeah.
make a comment about the very simplistic minimal labels.
Before we
Um,
move on, I need to go grab my charger for my
and let me
laptop right here. I'll be right
see.
back.
I'm having some interesting audio issues.
Okay.
I'm having some interesting audio issues. Specifically, I'm getting stuttering and repeating. Basically, the statement will start, and for whatever reason, it'll cut and drop the first part again. And I don't know if that is
Yeah.
my
Do you
end or
wanna
if
drop
anybody
and
else is
rejoin the
experiencing
call?
it. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that because that was.
Here, I've taken our
Oh,
cameras off. Go ahead and fiddle with your settings. Is it better now? Feel
All
good?
right. Uh,
I
that
think your microphone is cleared up a bit.
it is not really, but I'm
ooh.
getting weird. It's just repeating.
Are
I don't.
you
I'll just
by
suffer
any
through it.
chance are you by any chance also watching the Twitch stream?
I am, but I have it muted.
You want to double check that? Because I can't think where else the echo would be coming from.
I have just
Yeah.
found out that my
Well,
laptop is not being plugged in and it's running on low battery mode, so this might have fixed it.
Sorry, y'all bear with
um,
us.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I had it muted.
Yeah.
And it's not an echo. It chops and like it's hard to explain, but it's basically like if I started the sentence. It's basically like if I started the sentence and it does that.
Okay. Well, it
And
sounds
I
good on
I
my
can't
end.
explain.
Sounds good on my end. How's it
Yeah.
doing now, by the way?
I mean, your audio sounds really nice and crisp, but I'm just having a weird issue.
Ooh, fascinating.
I'll figure it out at some point.
Is it everyone
Sure.
Um,
echoing? Is it your voice echoing?
yeah.
Yours.
I can't hear my voice through Discord, but it's you and Ian, and it's the
Ooh, it's
same
both.
thing. So I think it's probably some sort of weird
Oh, hey, you're
something that
doing your audio recording backup locally, right?
yeah.
Are you by any chance monitoring that recording? Is there like a setting in that
I
software to
am
turn
not.
off playback?
I'm not. I'm just the playback is. Well, I mean, it was not monitored. I couldn't hear that, but I did
Interesting.
just kill Audacity to see what happens.
Okay. Well, I'm not so worried about the backup audio if you want to fiddle with that and see if it's better.
Sure.
You could turn off all your extra recording stuff and
I
see what
I
you end up
might
with.
have to record the whole thing at some point to see what you think that is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
we'll
mean,
figure
I've
it
got it
out.
off now, and I've
Hmm.
got the same. Anyway, so the other issues
So
that I have
that's
with
going to be a
the
big
Trillium
cut right there
label,
in the middle.
apart from the
I'm gonna
fact that it
clap to
doesn't
get
list.
restarted.
Ooh, very fun.
Find that
Oh,
in the
sorry.
recording and cut that out. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But no, it's fine. Just my clap is enough. I'll sort through the video
Just
and
your clap? All
yeah,
right,
because I
sweet.
just need to figure out where the cut is and we'll get rid of it when we
Hmm.
do post. Um, if you're okay with it, Phil, let's go ahead and Ian and I will try not to interrupt you because it'll disrupt you
Yes.
more than usual.
Sure. Yeah. Talk about this, Kinsey. I'd love to hear about it.
So the Kinsey label has a similar issue where it doesn't have a state of distillation listed. It's got all sorts of cool information. It's a relatively minimalistic throwback design. It looks very retro. The difference in text color and background color is for the most part great. I like that it's finished in Moscatel casks. But the Kinsey marking, I think it's supposed to be a knight's helmet at the top, and
I
the
believe
seal
so. I
of
think it's
decay in
supposed.
it are all, yeah, are all a little bit close to the background color. And it doesn't have the state of distillation listed, which was something that the TTB kept saying that they were going to get better about enforcing, and they haven't. Um,
Blended and
which
bottled
is
by.
entirely possibly just one of those things that will never get better.
Right. They wrote a state on here, and I guess we would have seen the back label if there was one. You are not required to say who distilled it, but
Um,
you are required to
the
say state of distillation.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about the Kentucky
Yes.
bourbon right here is that it says where it was distilled specifically, but it isn't entirely upfront
mhm,
about the actual place that distills it. This calls it Bourbon Square Distilling Company, but on the I want to say TTB actual thing, it does say that it was distilled at Buffalo Trace Distillery. Interesting. So interesting things there.
Very
It has a
strange.
completely different distilling company that does not itself exist in a full way. So I'm really interested in the future about looking into why that is
yes.
allowed, I want to say.
All right, so let me add some color commentary to the issue of submitting labels for approval. So there is a
Yeah.
very famous brand of scotch called Octomore. Whenever
Yeah.
they submit their labels
Mhm,
to the TTB for approval, they are generally hot pink on black. That is not how the bottle or tube looks. What's
I'd love it
going
if that was how the bottle looked.
right? Every time they do that, I'm like, oh, is this one going to be hot pink? Because they change
yes.
their branding but what actually happens there is they have a black or gray tube, and the text is just raised and has a different level of shininess to it. So it is essentially a solid color tube. There's usually some white text, but the pink is actually
Mhm,
just like a more polished appearance, and it rises out of the tube. Um, and so when the labels are submitted for approval, this is the design, is the thing to realize. This is the design which is usually meant to
mhm,
evoke the color scheme, but is not necessarily going to be the color scheme. I think what might be going on here on this label is those dark yellow bits that are, the background is yellow and you've got these dark yellow bits. What I think, given the sort of kingly appearance of that, I think those are meant to be gold foil on the actual label.
mhm.
That would make a lot of
It's
sense right
probably
there.
gilding, and that
Yes.
never occurred to me.
That doesn't mean that, so gilding on yellow may not actually still be a good look, but
No.
it might work. It might look nice.
It would be an eye
Yeah,
catching very that blend of kind of the
yes.
magenta, the pink, and the gilded and the sort of mustard color would be a very notable label at the very least.
Yep. With that, I'm going to move us on to the next label and
Mhm.
see what we can get through here.
Could be embossed too, Skip says. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, embossed was what the Octomores are. They are embossed. Um, I did not want
Mhm.
to I did not want to start spewing dictionary definitions, but that is the correct word for that, for sure.
What is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is this?
So this is Southern Collective Distilling. The presenter note at the bottom is from what was on the slide before that don't worry about it. This is something that I happened across that I thought was really interesting. The approval notes say that the only things that can be changed are the things to do with the customer. So, like where it says a sample company name, that stuff can be changed, but nothing pertaining to the whiskey itself can be changed. So they're stuck at 100 proof and 50% alcohol by volume, non-chill filtered. It's probably going to end up being a clear label with that printed on it. That's all cool. That's good. I don't like their choice of text for single barrel straight rye whiskey, but that's purely subjective. What makes this particular submission interesting is if you'll go on to the next slide, this is the back label.
Oh no.
Holy crap. Really?
Aged
What?
at least 40 years.
What?
This is gonna be a super premium corporate swag.
Yeah, not only is this going to be super premium, I'm going to be honest, as Duckville said, completely subjectively, this label is one of the worst things I've ever fucking seen. I hate this.
Yeah, and so here you can see they've actually made an effort to show that the certain text and lines on these labels are going to be gilded, right? These lines across the
Yeah,
middle
they
here
have.
are going to be gilded for sure, and this text
Oh,
is meant to be gilded.
375. I didn't even catch that. You're right.
Sorry, what?
On the bottom
Yeah.
of the on
Oh,
the
yep,
bottom right of the back label, 375 milliliters.
yep. So this is going to be a half-size bottle, and that's kind of an ambitious label length for a tiny bottle. But
Yeah,
this
it
is
is.
clearly meant to
At
be company
least
swag.
Ambitious label length for anything. I can
40
hardly
years.
read it.
But yeah, 40 years, and this is
40
sorry,
years
Yeah.
this
in
Oh,
is
Kentucky.
single barrel straight rye whiskey. So
Single barrel, 40 years old. Oh my
a 40
gosh.
year straight rye whiskey is gonna taste like pure oak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
That's
totally.
not even finished in another kind of barrel.
yeah.
That's
This
just
is
it's
going to
been
be
sitting.
absolute hot garbage.
Yeah, and it's gonna be expensive hot garbage too. No shade on the company, although
In
they didn't identify themselves. Clearly, this has been sourced. It says distilled in Kentucky, so it wasn't sourced from Indiana. But that's actually kind of interesting in its own right. That it is not apparently the biggest rye producer for label your own non-distiller
That's super
producer
true.
stuff. This is not MGP from Indiana, Midwest Grain Products. This
What a
is
fascinating.
who knows. This could be Evan Williams or Heaven Hill. Sorry, that's the same.
This says
Uh,
the back says something about Southern Collective Spirit Company, which I imagine is the bottler.
yeah, it's the bottler for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
non-distilling
Yes.
producer, no question.
They do. Yeah, they do like bottling for like, oh,
Could
you
be
want to
Barton.
buy a
Yeah, yeah,
barrel
Spicky.
for your company's
Could
party.
be.
I struggle with 20-year-old
But
straight American whiskey. I struggle with 20-year-old straight American whiskey. I haven't had it that many times, but it is even the most revered
yeah.
of them are a struggle. I have no idea how to tolerate a 40-year-old.
I'm going to be real with you. I mean, we all have very different
Yes.
drinking practices. I don't drink much older than 10-year-old whiskey. I really, really like young, like very young, very kind of hot whiskey in that sort of regard. This is fascinating.
Yep. And the oldest whiskey I have is 30 years, and the oldest closest thing to a rye whiskey would be the 29-year-old single grain whiskey I have. That
High
is
West was getting theirs from Barton.
Oh,
Theirs was from MGP.
I have older Armagnac though. I think I have Armagnac in the 40s year olds. Although Armagnac is interesting because it can actually sit in glass for part of its aging, and I think that unless they
Hmm.
explicitly say it has been aged in oak for X amount of time, you can actually have a slightly misleadingly high age statement on it.
Can sit in glass? That's a fascinating one.
Yeah, basically, when Armagnac is considered done, they move it to an inert glass demijohn, which is a kind of container. And then a lot
Fascinating.
of times they'll just say a vintage year. So you'll imply, right, vintage 1975, bottled in 2020, and you'll just infer that it's 45 years old, when in fact it might be 32 years old and it's just been sitting in glass for 15 or for 13 years
And
before they got
it's
around to bottling it.
Understandable, yeah.
So anyway, comments. High West was getting their sourced rye from Barton, and it was 15 years old.
Yeah. This was not something I knew actually,
I
and
don't, yeah, I can't verify that, but that sounds right. It
I
is
mean, I
now,
believe it. I can verify it if you want. I can talk to someone.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to answer our chat's questions if you don't mind taking a note to get an answer on that.
No,
So
totally. I can
High
talk to
West is
guys.
now their own distillate, I think is what you're saying. But the first few
I
batches were
believe it
15-year
is.
Barton.
I believe now it is a high. Their double rye is M. I believe that they are blending their own distillate with MGP for their rendezvous, and don't know about their midwinter night dram. Don't ask me about that one necessarily. But their campfire and other things like that, their borai are also whole different stories right there.
Yeah, and High West is
But
really
yeah,
good where if you go on their website, they will give you the details of what's in your bottle.
oh yeah,
So you don't need to go guessing about that. They're one of the really transparent brands that we appreciate. Um, well, anyway, this label is certainly a label.
it's a label. God, it's a label. There's a lot to talk about on
it's
this label.
it's a little wild.
Um,
If I had the chance to, I would redo pretty much everything about this label. Um, they've really gone into the green means rye
Yeah,
thing on their label,
yep,
because it is the only notable color besides gold.
yep, and red,
Um,
and red.
and red. You're right. A
Oh,
little bit of red border right there. A little bit of red writing. Yeah.
that reminds me, there is a thing on this label that is interesting. This is a single barrel whiskey, and they have written here
Yeah.
bottle 160 of 560. Obviously, not every single bottle can
60.
have this on the label.
yes.
So, this is an interesting point to point out that some labels you are allowed to write in or print different values depending on what actually goes into the bottle. I think so.
Mhm.
You could be allowed to write in the proof of a single barrel label. So you only have to approve a single barrel label once, and as long as you don't change anything else about the label, you could put a different single barrel and write the barrel number and write the proof. You're allowed to do that without running a whole new label by the TTB, which is a big boon to the producers that release single barrel whiskeys. And on top of that, uh, for collectors' reasons or other reasons, they like to write what bottle number it was when there's a really short run like this. You've got a few hundred bottles, and you want to know which one you had. So there's a couple of times where I've had a really low numbered or like
That
close
is
to
a
the end.
lot of bottles.
Yeah. So this says single barrel. I don't know how you'd get 560 bottles out of a single barrel.
Remind me of the math on that really quick, like here. So average barrel, we're
So,
talking what, 52
oh,
gallons,
this is a half
60
size.
gallons?
This is a 375. That's why.
53.
Oh, 375. Okay.
Yep, yep. So
Yeah, no,
typically,
you're right.
Yeah,
typically out of an American standard barrel, you would get around 200 to 300 bottles out of it, depending on how bad the evaporation was. So you double that,
Sure.
and you end up in this 500 to 600 range. That makes sense. All
That
right,
makes
let's
sense.
move
No,
on.
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Let's move
Let's
on to the
move
next
on.
label.
Oh, I see.
So this one is just cool because it's Slovakian whiskey. I didn't know that
I'm
Slovakia was
excited.
making whiskey, but
Did
it's a
not.
Slovakian single malt whiskey in virgin oak barrels. No age statement, but it looks like they'll put the cask number and the distilled and it doesn't look like a bottling date, but a distilled date, and you can
Yep,
probably
yep.
infer
Distilled date and bottle filled.
based on that.
So yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're gonna write in the actual dates here for extra.
Oh, and bottle number. Yeah, it was.
I really
Yeah.
enjoy it. It's very classic. sort of Scotch-styled label, I want to call it. Beautiful, like those two. What are those?
Yeah.
Storks up on top. I love the logo right
Cranes,
there.
something like that.
Cranes, storks. It's a great look. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I really enjoy this.
I mean,
Yeah, this is classic. It has
I
just enough
honestly
detail.
just threw this in because
Yeah, this is going to look nice.
Slovakian whiskey.
And Slovakian whiskey.
Yeah,
very
no,
cool.
Slovakian. I'm very. If I find this anywhere, I'd love to try it. Slovakia. They make some good wines out there. Surprisingly, very, very rarely they get to America. But
And am I missing it,
I'd
or
really
does
be
this
interested in trying.
not actually say that it's from Slovakia on the label here?
It does not say
Doesn't-
that it's from Slovakia on the label, apart from Tatra Mountain Whiskey. I did not include the back label, which did have a origin point, but it literally just had, the government warning and the point of distillation. And it was not. I just thought that this is cool.
Yeah, I would try it for sure.
No, that's very cool.
Really
Would
the only
love to
reason
try
I
this.
included it.
Ooh, Bimber.
Ooh. Oh, I do love these labels.
This is
So we talked about Bimber last
the
time.
first time that I've actually. Yeah, we did.
So here we have again the
They're
single malt
cool.
London whiskey. Which...
I don't think.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I like that.
Well, there is. Go on.
The only thing that I know about the London Underground series from Bimber is that they are very highly sought after and people really want them. And I did not think that they would be available in the US. I obviously haven't looked for them previously, but these showed up in my look through the approved labels, and I thought that that is really cool. It means that they at least think that there are going to be some that make it this far. It's kind of a cool series where they're naming releases after London Underground stations. Covent Garden is Oloroso casks. The Green Park is Muscatel. Leicester Square, sorry, is Virgin Oak, and Piccadilly Circus is finished in PX sherry casks.
Oh, beautiful.
I think that's actually full maturation. It doesn't say finished. I think that might just be PX sherry.
It is
full maturation.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I love these labels.
That's very
cool. These are amazing labels, especially when you get into the somewhat more abstract, modernist sort of sense. A lot of people will go very, very much sort of minimalist on those more modern abstract styles. This one has sort of gone a lot harder into not maximalist, I would say, but some really, really gorgeous sort of architectural statements, some really nice sort of notable styles going on there, a good use of color, very notable on a shelf in sort of inherently. Also, Rendrat has just said get off, so good night, Rendrat. We hope you have a wonderful evening.
Yep, thanks for joining.
Just love these labels right here.
Night, Holden. Sleep well.
So I personally think out of these four, I would pick Piccadilly Circus. I love Scotch finished in PX or matured in PX sherry. I don't know, and this isn't Scotch. This is UK single malt. I love single malt. I should say in general, I love single malt finished or matured in PX sherry, especially if it's peaty. I don't know if Bimber is peated whiskey or not.
Do not.
But I also have, from my one trip to London when I was much younger, I have fond memories of Piccadilly Circus. So I would get a bottle like this for the sentimental value. I think it would look good on a shelf.
Oh, yeah. I really want that Covent Garden Oloroso finished myself. That sounds wonderful.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Ooh, I've not had anything from Iron Root Republic before. Let's go, Phil.
I have reached out to Adam to see if he wants to say anything because he is real easy to reach out to. And he said that he doesn't have any comment at this time, but he did say that we could talk about these, and I would like to say that I really like this new label design. I think that these are beautiful labels. I really like them.
Oh yeah.
I like how much information they have on them. It's clear to me that there are some space holder things on there. I believe that the barrel number and the ABV is a placeholder.
Okay, yeah, so that's
Hmm.
interesting. So
Um,
I have here, and this is the single malt label color, not the bourbon color that's there. They may be changing the label colors. Um,
mhm,
it's not too different, but it is different enough
Hmm.
where they've gone instead of
I think
sort
so.
of doing a solid color for the whole the logo and the words. They've yeah,
Yeah,
we
I
both
mean,
have the same
like
model, I guess. Um,
this is.
they
Oh,
uh
sorry,
they colorized the barrel with the lantern on top,
but
which
I
makes
just
that
I
pop.
really like these.
Yeah, these are nice. And they've also separated the brand of the independent bottler from the name of the distiller. And they both are more prominent now than they were, which is really nice. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot better of a visual hierarchy on these labels. I've
I
grown
love this. Yeah.
I've grown to really like the classic label because I've bought a few of these bottles and I really do like them. They stand out on my shelf even as is. I think those are gonna up the game and the readability, and it's like it's going to look better on a store shelf, and really draw your eye to the important information.
Oh yeah.
The big brand, the distiller, both important, but this
Both
hierarchy of who is driving this bottling, who made the liquid, what the liquid is.
both that, and I think that this Lost Lantern label really accentuates the actual logo of it. That Lost Lantern, I think that this particular label is really
Mhm.
nice compared to the former ones for that logo. What I
Oh yeah.
really love about this is and this is coming from a little bit of a wine background right here, so this is something that I look out for on barrels quite a lot. They have much more specific locations of these whiskeys on this label, where they were distilled, where these distilleries are, and I love that. Between the location in Texas, the location in Kentucky, that is a great thing to see on a label. I love that shit.
Well, we have one more label, and I think we might call it a
And
day there
then
because we've
this
been
one.
live
Probably.
for an hour and a half.
Oh.
Oh, I'm excited about this label.
Oh
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry, guys. I didn't mean to monopolize the stream.
No, that's okay.
Oh no, you're fine. I
This
love
is
this.
great.
This is great.
I have heard about this one, and I am beyond excited for it because I don't know if
Oh,
you've
So,
had
it's
Dragon's Milk. What is it? I think it's an oatmeal stout or an imperial stout.
Dragon's Milk is a I think it is. Oh gosh, I can't for life remember. Dragon's Milk is this wonderful stout, imperial stout. I want to say, just gorgeous, dark,
mhm.
roasty flavors going on there. Not too intense, not too sort of honeyed and sweet like you get from some imperial stouts. Just beautiful beer right there.
And so the beer producer did in fact
Mm.
also distill their their beer, although it's probably unhopped. All right, let's look real closely. Um, so okay,
Who
no,
have knocked over everything.
this is not. Oh, there you go. This is not. It probably
This
is
is an
not.
imperial stout.
Yeah, so this is a straight bourbon whiskey, which means the the wash, which is like the whiskey term for beer, the wash that they distilled was not 100% malted barley. It must have been at least 51% corn, which means that this is not the same recipe they used to make their imperial stout. This is a new product, and they're using the
This is an interesting.
they're using the Dragon's Milk brand,
No.
um, which is perfectly reasonable, to also sell a whiskey.
So,
It is distilled, aged, and bottled by the same people.
Yep, by the New Holland Brewing
Yeah.
Company, which to be clear, the distiller is the person who is the company that makes the beer, right? This wasn't contracted out to a different distillery. The brewery decided to distill a whiskey.
A
And
little bit surprising, to be honest. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited to see what
So
this tastes like. Yeah. Go ahead, Phil.
the the thing is about this that I find super interesting is my understanding is that they are basically going, well, we don't want to pay somebody else for bourbon barrels to age our stout, and so we're making them ourselves. And I think that's really cool. And this means that they've been doing it for a minimum of 4 years.
Mm.
And I think
Mm.
that
You're right.
is cool. Granted, this may not come out until next year or the year after. I don't know what the window is on it or the window for approval is, but this is an approved label through TTB. And I think that's awesome. Also, to be clear, the Dragon's Milk Origin and Bottled and Bond bourbon whiskey text is on a clear background.
A clear
So
background. Okay.
either they're going to have a clear label with that text on it, or that will be screen printed directly on the bottle.
Yeah, I think
Interesting
But
that's
that's
choice
more
to go
likely.
for black for the dragon milk, for like the clear, the text on the clear. Would have gone for white
I
or
would
something more
bet,
notable, probably.
again, since colors can change, I would bet that that's going to be
Mm.
white and screen printed on the bottle.
Yeah,
So that'll be an
it's
interesting
a it's
prediction to check when
I
it
mean,
actually comes out.
yeah. Phil?
that's a good guess because it is screen printed in white on their stout bottles.
Oh, that is true, isn't it? It's a good looking label. A lot
I'm
of
gonna have
nice
to go get
information
some.
there up front, just on the front back label. Not too much going on. Good amount of space on the back for that fairly lengthy blurb right on the back right there. Honestly, 2 paragraphs. I want to say pretty.
I also do I do really like the color combination, and it's just a very classic. The text is nice and clear, and the font is nicely chosen.
Yeah.
I think that this is probably one of my favorite logos, or not logos, favorite labels that I've seen just scrolling through, and I've seen some real winners, I guess you could say,
Okay.
because I've been looking at pretty much not every, but a lot of the approved TTV labels over the last 2 weeks, at least in the category of whiskey.
Yep. So I like
Which
that theory about why these barrels
a little over
exist.
200.
That they're making their own bourbon barrels, so they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to rely on other bourbon producers. That explains the difference in recipe as well. But I will point out they have done this in the most try-hard way possible, right? They've gone
Oh,
ahead and said, we're not just going to put bourbon in a barrel for a year and then say that's good enough to age our beer in. They said we're going to adhere to the most stringent standard in American spirits, specifically bourbon, even more than other types of spirits.
bonded, baby.
Yeah, bottled in bond. It has to be at least 4 years old,
Oh
which
yeah,
is not the minimum of all bourbon. It has to be exactly 100 proof. It has to be distilled in the same season, right? This is the most strict regulation on whiskey anywhere in the world. And they've said if we're going to make our own bourbon barrels, by Joe, we're going to do it right.
Yeah, this is great.
So hats off
yeah.
to
That is just extremely cool in my opinion.
yeah, hats off to Dragon's Milk uh, for making bourbon the right way and giving us
Yeah,
something to
right.
look forward to. Good beer, good
Making bourbon the
whiskey.
right way, making beer the right way. Like, they do some good stuff over there. Get their beer. Not sponsored.
Mm-hmm.
Not sponsored. We have no sponsorships. We do like to
We
talk
have no
about brands
sponsorship.
that we like, and you'll see us coming back to the same ones. It's impossible in a whiskey podcast not to talk about brands. And we are going to talk about the ones that we like. Rest assured, in compliance with any sort of legal things and our general editorial standards, if we ever do receive a sponsorship, you will be 100% sure that that is the case.
If Trader Joe's wants to sponsor me, I'll do it for 5 boxes of those little like sausages in pastry. Like, I'll do it for anything. Like, Trader Joe's sponsor me, please.
Oh, On that note, since we could just sort of cold close on labels, or
Could do.
why don't you share with us that Trader Joe's bourbon cocktail that you came up with?
Let's share a little bit of that Trader Joe's bourbon cocktail. Let me pull up the precise recipes. So, quick explanation of this one right here. This Trader Joe's bourbon. Quick thing. This one is going to be about. So this one is. Let's see. I have a lot of thoughts on this label. I think this is an excellent label for a very cheap whiskey. Just nice, straight to the point. This is a Kentucky bourbon straight whiskey. According to my research on the internet, it is most likely distilled over at the Buffalo Trace Distillery. On Trader Joe's website, it says that it is at least 5 years old. It says that this is subject to change. So who knows how long this particular one has specifically been aged. Let me actually find my little recipe right here while I actually find out that one. There we are. Actually,
I put up a slide of the official screenshot from the official website, Trader Joe's, for $14.99. You can buy this Trader Joe's Kentucky Bourbon Straight Whiskey.
Oh yeah.
And I should have probably clicked on the read more link. But yeah, aged a minimum of 5 years for a cheap store brand. That's technically
That's
overdoing
pretty.
it.
That's pretty impressive, honestly. So for this one, what I have made is an infused cocktail. This one was a pre-batched one of sorts. You saw me drinking a little bit earlier on in the stream. This one is going to be about 8 ounces of this Kentucky bourbon whiskey, a bunch of Granny Smith apples, some infusion. That's to say, some fresh grapefruit from right around here. A little bit of honey liqueur. I used one from a distillery up in Walla Walla Valley, where all the wine is over in Washington. And then you get a lot of very fun flavors from both that honey liqueur, a little bit of sugar syrup, honestly, a little bit of cinnamon, some allspice. Let me find. Here it is. Found it. So 2 ounces of 1-to-1 simple, 8 ounces of actual Kentucky bourbon whiskey, a very, very small amount of vinegar. I use a Filipino spiced vinegar. Then 1.5 ounces of honey liqueur. I use a rose and honey liqueur. This one tastes absolutely excellent on the rocks. I would say a little bit thick for it. Lot of floral notes, but you get some of that very, very big sweetness. I'm going to wager that this is a wheated bourbon due to the sweetness, but don't quote me on that. Beautiful in cocktails for $14.99, if I remember correctly, was it? Just absolutely wonderful little bottle. Now, Doug does have some disagreements with me, but whether or not it has changed in the past few years or not really does depend. I made this cocktail sort of with the idea of making it shine a little bit more, and I think that some of that sweetness, some of that nuttiness from the bourbon and that oak aging really does help out with this cocktail. If you're looking for a bourbon to make cocktails with or just to experiment with, I do highly suggest trying out some of Trader Joe's if they're available in your state, because they have both some very, very cheap bourbon whiskeys and very cheap Scotch whiskeys as well, honestly. I have not seen a rye from them yet. I would be interested if they ever did come out with one, but once again, not particularly sponsored from these people. I would just want. So take that as all you will.
Neither particularly nor actually in any sense sponsored by. But we like Trader Joe's around here. And so
No,
I'll just say,
no.
I'll
Although
balance out.
it sounds like Ian can be bought with some pastry wrapped sausages.
Yep.
I can be bought with pastry wrapped sausages. As many of them are as you are willing to give me, you can buy me with those. But yeah, Doug, your dissent right here.
Yeah, so it's entirely possible that this has changed in the 5 years since I bought my bottle, and I found it unenjoyable, neat, unenjoyable on the rocks, and I felt it made an unremarkable old fashioned. I admit I
Hmm.
didn't try it beyond that, but I did find myself making old fashions and mixing it with afternoon coffee on the weekends just to get rid of it. And this was long before I started writing reviews. In retrospect, I wish that I had held on to some of it because I would have been able to compare it against things that I think are worse now. And I may find that it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was. And tastes do change. Um, at the time I was the sort of I would say this is a perfectly legitimate way to enjoy whiskey is to buy a bottle that happens to look good on the shelf um, for whatever reason, or maybe the price is right, and just work through it until you finish it and then buy something else. Uh, that bottle of Trader Joe's bourbon was the first time I regretted my policy of not buying another bourbon until I finished the one on my bar cart. I really
Ooh,
wanted
that's a
something
rough one.
else.
That
Um,
is entirely fair. I think that it has probably changed from when you first tried it because I think there is very little offensive about this whiskey, but also very little that is particularly good about it as well.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, I would probably give it a 4 out of 10, which is to say it's a little bit below average. Like, it wasn't bad. I more than anything found it boring. So having that for
Sure.
some cocktails where you're going to balance it with lots of other flavors totally makes sense. And having another whiskey to work with is also a good idea in that situation.
Oh yeah.
What you got there,
So I
Phil?
mean, we'll. Oh yeah. What do
So
you have there,
on
Phil?
the topic, on the topic of buying a bottle of whiskey because you think that it looks cool. In my case, it was the box. The first bottle of single malt I ever bought myself was Ardbeg 10,
Sure.
and I had not really considered the concept of peated whiskey, let alone heavily peated. And I am quite glad that I enjoyed it because it was a heck of a leap of faith, having no clue what I was getting into. Fun fact, this is the original box. I have literally every time I've bought a new bottle, I've put the new bottle into the first box because I'm weird.
Hey, that's good.
Perfectly fine. It's
Naturally,
entirely normal behavior.
Skippy has weighed in. He didn't. He was responding to the fact that you liked the Ardbeg. Skippy is on the complete opposite end
Yeah.
of whether he likes the heavily peated style, and the answer is he doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
Skip did say that he was going to be a guest on the Pete episode. I will honor that, Skip. I will make absolutely sure that you're on. I will reschedule my whole shit to make sure you're on the Pete episode. Do not worry, my guy.
well, all right.
Oh boy.
I think we've just about exhausted ourselves here. We've been live for an
Oh,
hour
problem.
45. Luckily, we had nowhere to
Yeah.
go. Um, I unfortunately don't have anything in my glass at the moment, so why don't we pour a final glass of something and have a toast? And somebody work on a toast because I don't have one ready. Um,
I think I've got one.
on the note of peated whiskey that Skippy does happen to like, I'm going to pour myself a little of this Lost Lantern McCarthy's.
I am pouring some of that Kentucky bourbon right here.
I've got some Cashel.
I'm also
Oh,
trying to finish this bottle. I have another
go
one.
for it.
I want to clear the space on my shelf for the next round of Lost Lantern that's
For the
coming in.
next round of Lost Lantern. Oh, there's some gorgeous stuff. All right, so for our final toast, I suppose we'll make a thing out of this more pleasure. But for right now, I do assure you all, we have a lot more stuff, and we didn't even get to what we wanted to what we had talking about in this episode right now.
Our main topic
So
didn't even make it into the stream.
we had a main
Yeah.
topic and we had a backup topic, and we didn't get into either of them in this stream.
We'll work on our time
So
management.
we'll work on our time management. to more episodes of this, to more labels, to honestly more quite fun conversation about all this stuff happening right now. I look forward to it. It's been an excellent time with both of you. And what's the one? Slenta, isn't it?
Slancha.
Slancha.
Launcher.
And we're clear.
And we are.